Hello everyone, my name is Zishan and welcome to my comprehensive training on cybersecurity. Today's topic is all about hacker types and attack methods. Today we are going to pull back the curtain on the world of cybercrime and cyber warfare. We'll explore who these attackers are, what drives them, and most importantly, how they operate. By the end of today's session, you will understand the threat landscape in a completely new way. You will be able to identify different types of attackers, recognize their methods, and most critically, you know how to defend against them. But here's what makes today's session different from typical security presentations. We are not just going to talk theory. I'm going to share real world attack scenarios, actual case studies where millions of dollars were lost, and show you exactly how these attacks unfold step by step. So let's dive right in and see what we are up against. So let me be very clear about what you are going to walk away with today's session. These aren't just learning objectives, these are practical skills that would save your organization millions of dollars. Let me take a snip of this because whenever I click on this, it is just navigating to a different slide. So I don't want that to happen again and again. Yes. First, First, you'll identify different types of hackers and their motivations. This isn't just about knowing the terminology, it's about understanding the enemy. When when you know who's attacking you and why, you can predict their next move. Secondly, you'll understand common attack vectors. I'm going to show you exactly how attackers think, how they plan their attacks, and the specific techniques they use to compromise systems. Third, we'll analyze real world scenarios, not hypothetical situations, actual attacks that happen to real organizations. Some of these cases made international headlines as well. And the fourth, you learn to recognize attack patterns and warning signs. By the end of the session, you will know what to look for when an attack is beginning to unfold. And the fifth is we'll discuss how to implement appropriate defense strategies. Knowledge without action is useless. You leave with concrete steps you can take immediately. And finally, you'll be able to assess your organization's vulnerability. You'll know where you are most at risk and how to prioritize your security investments. Are you ready to become a threat intelligence expert? Let's start with the current state of the battlefield. Let's move to the next slide and see. Okay, let me give you some numbers that should wake everyone up. Okay, so let me just again take some snip here because if I start writing something here, it will just change. Yes. So now we are facing 4,000 cyber attacks every single day. That's one attack every 22 seconds. Every 22 seconds, there's one attack. The economic impact is staggering. We are looking at 10.5 trillion, in annual damage by 2025. To put that in perspective, that's larger than the GDP of every country except United States and China. So 95%, the statistics, but here's the most important statistics, in the slide, where 95% of successful attacks use social engineering. That means the vast majority of cybercrime isn't about sophisticated technical exploits. It's about manipulating people. Now, Who are they targeting? Right? We should get to know who are the attackers targeting, the top targets. Healthcare organizations are under constant assault because medical records are worth 10 times more than credit card numbers on the dark web. Financial institutions are obvious targets. That where the money, that's where the money is, right? Government agencies hold state secrets and critical infrastructure data that comes into government agencies attack, the top target. And the critical infrastructure itself, power grids, water treatment facilities, transportation systems, these are the targets that can cause real world physical damage. Like the threat landscape has fundamentally changed. This isn't about teenage hacker defending website anymore. We are dealing with organized crime syndicates, nation state military units, and terrorist organizations. The stakes have been higher. So let's understand exactly who we are dealing with. Not all hackers are created equal. So let's move on to the next slide, which is hacker categories. Before we dive deep, let me give you the high level classification system. Think of this as our threat taxonomy. White hat hackers, right? Let me just again quickly do this. The white hat hackers, who are these guys? These are good guys. These are ethical hackers who use their skills to improve security. They are on our side. And black hat, black hat hackers are the traditional cyber criminals. These are the ones you read about in the news, motivated by money, revenge, or just causing chaos. Grey hat hackers occupy the middle ground. They are not necessarily malicious, but they don't always follow the rules either. They might hack your system without permission, but then they'll tell you what then they'll tell you what they hacked and what was the vulnerability about. Those are gray hat. And nation state actors, these are the most dangerous. Think military grade cyber operations with unlimited budgets and sophisticated capabilities. Each category has different motivations, different capabilities, and different approaches. Understanding which type you're dealing with is crucial for mounting an effective defense. Let's start with good guys and work our way down to the most dangerous. Here we go. Now, let's begin with the heroes of our story, the white hat hackers, also known as ethical hackers. What makes them different? First and most importantly, they have legal authorization, right? This is the legal authorization. Let's take the snip again. Okay. So legal authorizations, right? They have the legal authorization. They are not breaking into system illegally. They are hired to do it. They follow responsible disclosure practice, which means when they find vulnerabilities, they report them privately to the organization first, giving them time to fix the issue before going public. Their, un- their ultimate goal is to improve the security. They are like locksmith who test your locks to make sure they actually work. What do they actually do? What exactly they do? What are the activities they perform? The white hat hackers perform penetration testing. They simulate real attacks to find weakness. Vulnerability assessment, systematic evaluation of security postures, bug bounty programs. Company literally pay them to find security flaws. The security research, they discover new attack techniques and defense methods. And red team exercises, they play the role of attackers in realistic simulations. Let me give you a real example where I have one of the scenario. Let's suppose there's someone, okay, called Sarah. Okay, she's a bug bounty hunter. Now, while testing a major bank, Sarah was testing a major bank while she was testing a major bank's website in her spare time. Now, she discovers a SQL injection vulnerability. Some vulnerability was found, SQL injection vulnerability that could expose customer account information. Now, Sarah could exploit for personal gain. She could steal the data, right? She could steal the data, sell it on the dark web, make a lot of money. But that's not what white hat hackers do. Instead, Sarah documented her attack, documented everything, the exact step to reproduce the vulnerability, the potential impact, and recommendation for fixing it. She submits this through the bank's official bug bounty program. Okay, now she's submitting it instead of exploiting it. The bank thanks her and pays her, let's suppose, $15,000 for finding this critical flaw. Sarah gets paid, right? The bank fixes their security and customers are protected. So everybody wins. This is the power of ethical hacking. White hat hackers are finding vulnerabilities before the bad guys do. If your organization isn't working with ethical hackers through penetration testing or bug bounty programs, you're essentially hoping that criminals find your vulnerabilities after white hat hackers do. And that's a bet you don't want to lose. Now, let's talk about the other side of the coin, the black hat hackers. Let me quickly take this as well. Okay, now we move into the dark side. Black hat hackers are criminals of cyberspace and they are responsible for the billions in damages we see every year. What drives them, right? What drives them? Financial gain is the biggest motivator. Cybercrime is a 6 trillion industry. 6 trillion. It is a 6 trillion industry. It's more profitable than the global drug trade. Personal vendettas. Personal vendettas drive some attacks. Okay, people seeking revenge. Some are motivated by intellectual challenge. They want to prove they can break into secure systems. Political activism drives others. These are hacktivists trying to make a statement, and for some, it's about reputation building in criminal communities. Who do they target? What are the common targets? Financial institutions, because that's where the money is, right? E-commerce platform with stored credit card data, personal data repositories. Your personal information is worth money. Corporate networks for industry espionage and government systems for state secrets or to cause potential disruptions. Let me tell you about the real attack that cost one company 4.4 million. 4.4 million and disrupted fuel supplies across the entire eastern United States. The Dark Side Ransomware Group, a sophisticated criminal organization, spent weeks studying Colonial Pipelines Network. This is that group that studied that company, Colonial Pipelines Network. They researched the company's executives on LinkedIn, identified key employees, and sent highly targeted phishing emails. Once they gained initial access through a compromised password, okay, since they did social engineering attack, right, they got a password. They spent weeks moving laterally through the network, escalating privileges and identifying critical systems. Then on weekend, they struck. They deployed ransomware across colonial pipelines, entire IT infrastructure. Entire IT infrastructure was attacked by a ransomware, encrypting everything from billing system to operational controls. Everything was encrypted. The company was forced to shut down the largest fuel pipeline in the United States. Gas stations from Georgia to New York ran out of fuels. Okay, people were panic buying gasoline. The Biden administrations declared a national emergency. So these are all true things which has happened. Dark side demanded 4.4 million in Bitcoin. See, 4.4 million in Bitcoin. Colonial Pipeline paid it because they had no choice. The economic impact of keeping the pipeline shut down was ever greater, even greater, sorry. Right? This is what we are dealing with. These aren't script kiddies in their parents' basement. These are professional criminal organization with business models, customer service departments and profit sharing agreements. They are running cybercrime like a Fortune 500 company. But not all hackers fit neatly into the good guys versus bad guys category. Let's talk about the gray hat now. Now, gray hat hackers are the most complicated category to understand because they operate in the ethical and legal gray areas of cybersecurity. Here's what makes them different. They hack system without explicit permission. They'll not ask permission before hacking, but they often have good intention. They might discover a vulnerability in a public website and explore it further than they should legally speaking. They often seek recognition or publicity for their discoveries, and they sometimes violate terms of service or even laws even though they are trying to help. Let me show you a typical gray hat behavior pattern. It usually follows this sequence. Okay, first, the discovery. They find vulnerabilities in public system, maybe a government website or a major corporate portal. Second, testing. Here's where it just problematic. Instead of immediately reporting it, once they find something, instead of reporting it, they explore the vulnerability further. They might access data they shouldn't access or demonstrate the impact by going deeper into the system than necessary. And the third is disclosure. Eventually, they contact the organization or go public with their findings. Sometimes they try to contact the organization first, sometimes they go straight to the media or security conferences. And the fourth is recognition. They want credit for the discovery. They might publish detailed technical write ups, speak at conference, or seek media attention. The challenge with gray hat hackers is that their actions, while well intentioned, can still be illegal. Unauthorized access to computer system is a crime in most jurisdictions, regardless of intent. Even if they are trying to help, they are still breaking the law. Some gray hat hackers have faced prosecutions despite claiming they were trying to help. Others have been hired by the organizations they hacked because their skills were impressive. It's a risky path that can lead to either a criminal record or you know loss of career in cybersecurity. Now let's talk about a different type of threat altogether: the script kiddies. Who are these script kiddies? See, the emoji itself says what this script kid is. Okay, script kiddies might sound harmless, but don't be fooled. While they lack sophisticated technical skills, they can still cause significant damage. Here's the typical script kiddie profile, how it works. Limited technical knowledge, but see their profile, limited technical knowledge, but they know how to download and run pre-written tools. They are usually motivated by curiosities, showing off to friends, or getting revenge for some preserved slight. Many are young and don't fully understand the legal consequences after their actions. What do they use actually? What are the typical tools they use, right? Automated vulnerability scanners that anyone can download. DDoS tools like, we have LOIC, which we call it as low orbit ion cannon, or high HOIC, which is high orbit and Canon. These tools can take down websites with just a few clicks. Pre-built malware packages available on dark web forums, social engineering scripts and templates. Website, uh, you know, uh, there are some website tools that require no programming knowledge. So let me tell you about a 16-year-old in Ohio. This guy, there's no where he was, right? He was in Ohio, who caused millions of dollars in damage with tools he downloaded from GitHub. The kid was passionate about online gaming. When he lost matches in his favorite game, he got angry, really angry. Instead of accepting defeat like a normal person, he decided to take revenge on the entire gaming community. He downloaded a DDoS tool freely available online and started launching attacks against gaming servers every time he lost a match. He didn't understand the technical details of how the tool worked, but he knew it would knock servers offline. Over several months, his attack grew larger and more frequent. He started targeting not just individual game servers but entire gaming platform. His attacks, disrupted services for hundreds of thousands of players. Gaming companies lost revenue from subscription cancellation. Players lost progress in online competitions. The FBI traced the attacks back to him. He was arrested, charged with computer fraud, and faced up to 10 years in federal prison. His parent had to hire expensive lawyers. The family faced civil lawsuits for gaming companies seeking damages. The lesson here is that you don't need to be sophisticated hacker to cause serious damage. Easily available tools combined with poor judgment and a lack of understanding about consequences can be incredibly destructive. Every organization needs to prepare for script kiddie attacks because they are the most common. Your defenses need to work against both sophisticated nation state actors and angry teenagers with downloaded tools. Speaking of sophisticated actors, let's talk about the most dangerous threat in cyberspace, that is nation state actors. Hope these scenarios are interesting. These are all real world scenarios which are happening. Sorry, which had happened. I'm just taking those use cases for the explanation. Okay, now we enter the realm of cyber warfare. A nation state actors. Okay, this nation state actor represent the absolute pinnacle of cyber threats, and they are fundamentally changing the nature of international conflict. Look at these capabilities. Okay, look at these capabilities. Unlimited resources and time. We are talking about military budget dedicated to cyber operations, advanced custom malware that's never been seen before, may never be detected by traditional antivirus. Zero day exploit arsenals. They are sitting on vulnerabilities that no one else know about. social engineering expertise that would make professional con artists jealous, and long term persistence presence. They can hide in your network for years without being detected. That is, we call it as APTs as well, advanced persistent threat. What are they trying to achieve here, right? What would be their objectives for nation state actors? Espionage and intelligence gathering, stealing state secrets, military plans, diplomatic communications, critical infrastructure disruptions, right? They want to, they want the ability to turn off your power grid or ground your aircraft. Then economic advantage, stealing intellectual property, trade secrets, and sensitive information or financial informations. Political influence operations, manipulating elections, spreading disinformation, and undermining democratic institutions. And military strategy advantage, preparing the digital battlefield for potential physical conflicts. Let me tell you about Stuxnet, the most sophisticated cyber weapon ever discovered and probably the most significant cybersecurity incident in history. In 2010, okay, this has happened in 2010. In 2010, security researchers discovered something unprecedented. A computer worm that was designed not to steal data or make money, but to physically destroy real world equipment. Stuxnet specifically targeted Siemens industrial control systems used in Iran's nuclear facilities. The malware was so sophisticated that it could identify the exact model of centrifuges being used for uranium enrichment. It would then, alter the speed of these centrifuges, causing them to tear themselves apart while reporting normal operations to monitoring system. Right? That's dangerous. The attack required detailed knowledge of Iran's nuclear program, including facility layouts, equipped specifications, and operational procedures. It exploited four different zero-day vulnerabilities. That's unheard of sophistications. The malware was designed to spread through air-gapped network using USB drives. Understanding the USB drive, what kind of attack is this? If you have attended my first session, you would have known what is, no, if I'm using USB device plugging into some system, physical security. Stuxnet physically destroyed approximately 1,000, almost 1K centrifuge at Iran's, Natanz facility and set back their nuclear program by years. It was the first cyber attack to cause physical destruction of industrial equipment. It demonstrated that cyber weapons could be as destructive as conventional military weapons. While the details have never been officially confirmed, okay, this was not officially confirmed. Security experts believe Stuxnet was developed jointly by United States and Israel. This wasn't cybercrime, this was cyber warfare between nation states. And here's what should keep you awake at night. If nation state actors can build something like Stuxnet to destroy Iranian centrifuges, what do you think they can do to your organization's system? Right? Nation state actors aren't looking to steal your credit card data or make quick money. They are planning a much longer, more strategic game. They might spend years in your network, learning your operations, mapping your systems, and positioning themselves for maximum impact when they decide to strike. But external threats aren't the only danger we face. Some of the most devastating attacks come from inside the organization. Let's move there to the next slide. To insider threats. Okay. Now we talk about the threat that keeps security professional awake at night, insider threats. These are the people who already have access to your systems, who know your weakness and who can cause massive damage without ever having to break in. Let's break down the three types of insider threats. Okay. First is malicious insiders. Malicious insiders are the most dangerous. Okay. These are people with legitimate access who decide to use it for harmful purposes. Employees who feel they have been wronged by the organization. People facing financial difficulties who see valuable data as a way to make money. Employees seeking revenge against their employer for perceived injustice, or people motivated by ideology. They might disagree with their organization's mission or be recruited by competitors or foreign intelligence services. Okay, those are malicious insiders. Moving to negligent insiders. Okay, who are these insiders? Negligent insiders aren't trying to cause harm, but they do anyway through carelessness. They might unintentional mistakes. They make unintentional mistakes. Okay, clicking on phishing links, misconfiguring security settings, or accidentally sending sensitive data to the wrong recipients. They practice poor security hygiene, using weak passwords, sharing accounts, or accessing company data on personal devices. They lack security awareness and don't understand the impact of their actions. And they violate policies not out of malice, but out of convenience or ignorance. These are negligent insiders. Then we have compromised insiders. Who are these compromised insiders? So they are not, actually a threat actor. They are like compromised insiders are victims themselves. They are being blackmailed or they are being blackmailed into malicious actions. They have fallen victim to social engineering and don't realize they are being manipulated. Their accounts have been compromised and attackers are using their credentials, or they are unwitting accompliance. They think they are helping a colleague or customer, but they are actually assisting an attacker. Let me tell you about Edward, not Snowden, but a database administrator at a mid-sized financial company. Okay, Edward had worked at company for 8 years. Okay, he had worked for 8 years. This guy, Edward, he was trusted, competent, and well liked by his colleagues. But Edward had a secret. He was drowning in gambling debt. He was drowning in gambling debt. Now he needs money. His wife didn't know. His colleagues didn't know. But Edward owed $200,000 to some very dangerous people. In his death, in his debt, he had to own $200,000 to some very dangerous people, and they were threatening his family. Now, Edward started small. He accessed customer credit card data and sold small batches on dark web forums. Just a few dozen records at a time, not enough to trigger fraud detection systems. He told himself it was temporary, just until he could pay off his debts. But gambling addiction doesn't work that way. Edward's debt grew faster than his illegal income. He started taking bigger risk, accessing more data, selling larger batches of customer information. Over 6 months, he compromised 50,000 records. 50,000 records, customer records. Edward was finally caught when a routine audit noticed unusual database access patterns. By then, the damage was done: customer lawsuits, regulatory fines, reputation damage, and criminal prosecution. The total cost to the company exceeds 50 million. The crazy part about Edward's case is that everything he did was technically within his authorized access. He didn't have to hack any systems or bypass any security controls. He was supposed to have access to the database. That was his job. This is why insider threats are so dangerous. Traditional security controls are designed to keep unauthorized people out. But what do you do when the threat is coming from someone who is supposed to be inside? Now that we understand who the attackers are, let's dive into how they actually operate. Let's explore the weapons in their arsenal. Okay, let me just take a snip of this. All right. Now we are getting to the tactical level. Y- You have met the players. Now let's understand their playbooks. These six categories, okay, these categories represents the vast majority of cyber attacks you will encounter. Think of these as the fundamental attack patterns that everything else builds upon. Social engineering, the art of manipulating people. This is still the most effective attack vector because humans are often the weakest link in any security system. Password attacks, because despite all our technology, we still rely on passwords and people are terrible at creating and managing them. Malware, right? Malicious software designed to damage, disrupt, or gain unauthorized access to systems. The network attacks, exploiting vulnerabilities in network protocols and infrastructure. Web application attacks, targeting the application that run our digital world. Then we have physical attack, because sometimes the easiest way into a system is to walk through the front door. Over the next few slides we are going to dive deep into each category. I'm going to show you real attack scenarios, explain exactly how these attacks work, and most importantly tell you how to defend against them. Pay attention, because statistically speaking your organization will face attacks from at least four of these six categories this year. This question isn't whether you'll be attacked, it's whether you'll be ready. Let's start with the most dangerous category, social engineering. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Here's an unforgettable truth. Okay, I could probably compromise most of your organizations within 24 hours, and I wouldn't need any sophisticated hacking tools. I would just need to pick up the phone and start talking to your employees. Okay, let's start with phishing, the gateway drug of cybercrime. Okay, the first thing, the phishing. Let me take a snip of this before that. Okay, so phishing, which is critical, right? These are fraudulent emails designed to steal credentials or install malware. But modern phishing isn't the obvious Nigerian prince. Okay, emails from 1990s. There are spear phishing, targeted. Attackers research their victims on LinkedIn, Facebook, company websites. They know your name, Your job title, your colleagues, your recent projects, the emails are personalized and believable. Whaling. What is whaling? Whaling targets executives especially because they have access to the most valuable information and are often less security conscious than IT staff. Clone phishing is practically insidious. Attackers intercept legitimate emails, modify them slightly to include malicious link, and resend them from spoofed address. Then we have wishing. What is wishing? Just high nowadays. Wishing is voice-based social engineering. Is making a huge comeback. Attackers call impersonating IT support. They call like, "Hi, this is Mike from IT. We are having issues with your account and need to verify your password." They impersonate banks. I can just call you and say, "This is a fraud prevention calling about suspicious activity on your account." They create false emergencies. They might say, your computer is sending viruses. Click this link immediately to fix it. Right? Then smishing. What is smishing? Smishing uses text messages, fake delivery notification that ask you to click a link to reduce delivery, to reschedule delivery. Bank security alerts claiming your account has been compromised. Contest winnings that require you to provide personal information. Then we have pretexting. Pretexting is creating false scenarios like fake surveys that ask seemingly innocent questions but gather intelligence for future attacks. Impersonating authorities, police, IRS agents, regulatory officials, false emergencies designed to bypass normal security procedures. Now, let me tell you about a CEO fraud attack that cost one company like 1.2 million in just 30 minutes. It was a CEO attack, which means what under what category it went? It went under whaling category. I'm targeting executives. So it was on Tuesday afternoon. The CFO of a manufacturing company received an email that appeared to come from CEO. So, which means the CFO receives an email that appears from CEO, that appears to be from a CEO. The subject line read something like this: confidential acquisition, which means for acquisition. Confidential acquisition, urgent wire transfer required. Transfer, urgent, urgency is being sent in the subject. The email explained the company was acquiring a competitor, but the deal had to be kept completely confidential to avoid affecting stock prices. So the CEO was supposedly in meeting with lawyers and couldn't be reached by phone. He needed the CFO to immediately wire 1.2 million to a law firm's escrow account to secure the deal. Here's what made this attack so effective. The attackers had done their homework. They knew the CEO was traveling that week, information they found on his LinkedIn post. They knew the company had been discussing potential acquisitions mentioned in the latest earning calls. They knew the CFO's communication style from previous public emails. The email looked completely legitimate. The CFO thought, this is a big deal, but the CEO has asked me to handle urgent wire transfer before the acquisition story makes sense. We have been looking at competitors and CEO is traveling, so I can easily verify this. So the CFO authorized the wire transfer. By the time he realizes it was fraud, when the CEO returned and had no idea what he was talking about. The money was gone, transferred through multiple international accounts, and converted to cryptocurrencies. So 1.2 million lost. But that was just the beginning. investigation costs, legal fees, regulatory fines, insurance, deductibles, and reputation damage. The total cost exceeds 3 million. This attack succeeded not because of sophisticated technology, but because of sophisticated psychology. The attackers understood human nature, our desire to be helpful, our respect for authority, our fear of making mistakes by questioning legitimate requests. This is why security awareness training is critical. Your technical security controls are useless if attackers can simply call your employees and trick them into handing over access. But social engineering isn't the only way attackers, target the human element. Let's talk about password attacks. Password attacks. Let me ask you a question. You can ask yourself, how many of you use the same password on multiple sites? Right? If you're using, don't worry, you're not alone. Studies shows that 65% of people reuse password across multiple accounts, and that's exactly what attackers are counting on. Let's talk about how they exploit this weakness. Brute force attack. No, systematically try every possible password combination. This sounds slow, but modern computers can try millions of passwords per second. An 8-character password with just letters and numbers can be cracked in about 22 minutes. Dictionary attacks use list of common passwords. You would be amazed how many people still used password 123, the common password. Or you can, people use admin as well, has the password. These attacks try common password variations of different variations of dictionary words and password leaked from various breaches. Then we have rainbow tables. These rainbow tables are pre-computed database of password hashes. Instead of calculating each password attempt in real time, attackers look up the hash value in their tables. This makes password cracking much faster. But the most dangerous attack is credential stuffing, which is very critical as well, you could say. So remember those data breaches you read about. Equifax, Yahoo, LinkedIn attackers took those stolen username and password combination and tried them on other sites. Think about it, if your password for the photography forum that got breached in 2019 is the same as your corporate email password. Attackers can access your work account using credentials stolen from a completely unrelated website. So how do you defend against this? What is the defense strategy? This is your defense strategy. Strong password, complexity requirements, but make them reasonable. Use at least 12 characters with mix of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols. It's better than change your password every 30 days. Change your passwords every 30 days. Multi-factor authentication is your best defense. Even if attackers have your password, they still need your phone or authentication app. Password managers generate unique passwords for every account. You only need to remember one master password. Regular password rotating for privileged accounts, not every account. But the ones that really matter, and account locked policies after failed attempts. But be careful not to create denial of service vulnerabilities. Okay. And monitor for credential stuffing attacks. Look for large number of failed login attempts from different IP addresses. Here's practical advice you can implement immediately. Enable multi-factor authentication on every account that supports it, especially email, banking, and work accounts. Use a password manager. There are excellent free options available. And for the love of cybersecurity, stop using this password 123 variation. Password attacks, attack targets the human element, but our next category target your system directly with malicious software. The next category, we'll see about it. The malware category. So now malware is nothing but a malicious software is a weapon of choice for most cyber criminals. Let me walk you through the different types of show you, different types and show you why one particular category is causing panic in boardrooms worldwide. Viruses. Viruses attach themselves to legitimate files and spread when those files are shared. Whereas worms self-propagate across network without human intervention. And Trojans disguise themselves as legitimate softwares. Spyware secretly monitors and collects information. And botnets turns infected computers into remotely controlled armies. But ransomware is a category that's keeping every CEO and IT director awake at night. Let me tell you about WannaCry in 2017, May 2017 to be exact. The ransomware name was WannaCry ransomware. Okay, in just 4 days, WannaCry infected 300,000 computers across 150 countries. But this wasn't just about numbers, it was about critical infrastructure. The UK's National Health Service was devastated. Hospitals couldn't access patients' records, surgeries were cancelled, ambulances were diverted to unaffected hospitals, medical equipment went offline. In some cases, hospitals reverted to pen and paper for critical operations. But it wasn't just healthcare. Manufacturing plants shut down production lines. Railway systems cancelled trains. Telecommunication companies lost service. Government agencies went offline. Universities locked students out of their system. WannaCry exploited a Windows vulnerability that allowed it to spread across networks automatically. It didn't need human interaction, no clicking on malicious links or opening infected attachments. If one computer in your network got infected, the malware would automatically spread to every vulnerable Windows computer it would find. One installed, you know, WannaCry encrypted all the files. Once it got installed in your computer, WannaCry got installed, it encrypted all the files on infected computers and displayed a ransom message demanding Bitcoin payment. The attacker demanded $300 per computer, with the price doubling after 3 days and files being permanently deleted after 7 days. Here's the ironic part. Microsoft had released a patch for this vulnerability 2 months before WannaCry hit. 2 months before the patch was released. No one had updated the patch, right? Organizations that had kept their systems updated were protected. The attack succeeded primarily against organizations that hadn't applied security updates. WannaCry taught us several critical lessons. First thing is patch management isn't optional, it's survival. Second, network segmentation is crucial. If the attack can't spread, it can't cause massive damage. Third, backups are your last line of defense, but only if they are offline and regularly tested. Right now, ask yourself, when was the last time your organization tested its backup and recovery procedures? If you can't answer that questions confidently, you're not preparing for ransomware attack. Malware attack Malware attacks your endpoints, but our next category targets the very infrastructure that connects your organization to the world. What is that? So physical security, and we have thanks. Let me just take a snap. Okay, network attacks, target the communication channels that your business depends on. These attacks can interrupt your most sensitive communication, knock your service offline, or give attackers a roadmap to your entire infrastructure. Okay, man in the middle attack. What is man in the middle attack? Man in the middle attacks are particularly insidious because victims often have no idea they are being monitored. Attackers position themselves between you and your intended destination, intercepting all communications. Then we have, Wi-Fi eavesdropping is the most common from SSL TLS. What do you say? SSL TLS interception allows attackers to decrypt supposedly secure communication. Then we have ARP poisoning lets them redirect network traffic through their systems. The distributed denial of service attack aim to overwhelm your service with traffic, making them unavailable to legitimate users. This isn't just an IT problem, it's business continuity crisis. Volumetric attacks. Volumetric attacks flood your network connection with a massive amount of traffic. Protocol attacks exploit weakness in network protocols to consume servers resources. Application layer attack targets specific services with seemingly legitimate requests. Let me tell you about an attack that could happen to any of you tomorrow morning. You're traveling for business. Let's suppose you're traveling for a business and stop at a busy coffee shop near the airport. Okay, you're at an airport in a coffee shop. There's a Wi-Fi. You need to check email and finish presentation. You have your laptop with you. You connect to the Wi-Fi. Okay, you see a Wi-Fi network called free coffee Wi-Fi. Exactly what you'd expect in a coffee shop. What you don't know is that an attacker sitting three tables away, okay, maybe he's an attacker, has set up this fake Wi-Fi hotspot using a laptop and a $20 USB Wi-Fi adapter. The legitimate coffee shop Wi-Fi is called coffee shop guest, but the attacker's network has a strong signal and a more appealing name. You connect to free coffee Wi-Fi and start working. You check your email, the attacker captures your email credentials, you log into your company's customer management system, they capture those credentials too. You review some client contract stored in cloud storage, they intercept and copy those files. Over the course of an hour, while you innocently work on your presentation, the attacker captures your email login, your CRM access, confidential client documents, and potentially VPN credentials if you connected to your corporate network. You fly home completely unaware, you know, anything unaware anything happened, but the attacker now has access to your email account, your customer database, and confidential business documents. They can impersonate you, your you in emails to colleagues and clients. They can steal customer data. They can sell confidential information to competitors. you know Drive home this lesson that this attacker required no sophisticated technical knowledge, a laptop, a USB Wi-Fi adapter, which hosted his Wi-Fi, free software available online. The attacker didn't need to break into any secure system. You voluntarily connected to the network and handed over everything. Never connect to public Wi-Fi for sensitive work. Use your phone hotspot instead. If you must use public Wi-Fi, use a VPN to encrypt all traffic, and always verify the legitimate Wi-Fi network name with the staff. Don't just assume the strongest signal is legitimate. Network attacks target your infrastructure, but web application attack target the heart of your digital business. Let me just capture it fully so that we have everything visible. Okay, web application attack. SQL injection, critical, right? Is the crown jewel of web application attack, and it's devastatingly effective. Attackers inject malicious SQL code into web forms, URL parameters, or any input field that communicates with a database. Then there's cross-site scripting. The cross-site scripting attacks inject malicious scripts into web pages viewed by other users. Stored excesses permanently embedded malicious code in the application. Reflected excesses tricks users into clicking links that execute malicious code. Okay, DOM-based excesses manipulates the page structure itself. Similarly, we have CRF. We have directory traversal. These are all medium attacks. We call it as CRF is nothing but cross-site request forgery attacks. And we have directory traversal, which manipulates the path. Then let's move on to the next section, which is about physical security attacks. Okay, let's bring this back to the physical world again. While everyone's focused on firewalls and antivirus software, attackers are walking through your front door and plugging devices directly into your network. Is fol- you know Tailgating is following authorized personnel through secure doors. It's surprisingly effective because people are naturally polite and helpful. Lockpicking and badge cloning give attackers direct access to restricted areas. Dumpster diving reveals sensitive information in discarded documents. Surfing lets them observe password and access codes. But device-based attacks are, prac- prac- particularly concerning. Drops involve leaving malicious USB devices in parking lots, break rooms or conference rooms, hoping curious employees while plug them into corporate computers. Hardware keyloggers can be installed on keyboards to capture every keystrokes. Rogue access points create fake Wi-Fi networks. Card skimmers steal credit card data from payment terminals. Evil made attack involve physical accessing and modifying devices when users aren't present. Right, let me tell you about an attack that combines social engineering with physical access. Okay, you have a scenario here. Okay, social engineering and physical access. You can read through this and get to know about it in the interest of time for this session, or else it will drag more than 1 hour to complete this. Let's keep it short since it's all about theoretical thing for now. I just want you to understand the terminologies of the security patterns, in cybersecurity. Each thing has its own scenario and meaning, and you will have access to this particular PPT on the link which I will be providing. You will have access to the PPT as well as this site and the lab as well. We have a lab as well designed for you where you can practice your skills and try to see how you can create a report and everything. So let's come to APTs. What are APTs? Advanced persistent threat, which represents the evolution of cyber warfare. These aren't quick hit and run attacks. Okay, these are sophisticated multi-stage campaigns that can persist in your environment for years without detection. Okay, let me walk you through the typical APT attack lifecycle, because understanding this progression could help you detect an attack in progress. The first is initial compromise. Let me take a snip of this. The first step is initial compromise. This often begins with spear phishing emails targeted at specific individuals, but APTs also use watering hole attacks, compromising websites that their targets frequently visit, or supply chain compromises, infiltrating softwares or hardware before it reaches the target organization. Then establish foothold. Once they have initial access, APTs install backdoors and establish persistence mechanisms. They want to ensure they can regain access even if their initial entry point is discovered and closed. Then escalate privileges, which was it's all about this. Once they have initial access, APTs install backdoors and establish persistent mechanism. They want to ensure they can regain access if their initial entry point is discovered and closed. So that is about establish foothold. Sorry, escalate privileges is about the initial access is often limited here. If the initial access is limited, let's suppose I hacked into a normal user account. Now I want to go to a admin account, admin privileges. So escalating my privilege from the user account to an admin account is what is called escalate privileges, gain administrative access. Then we have internal reconnaissance. This is where APTs differ from common cyber criminals. They spend significant time mapping the network, identifying valuable targets, and understanding the organization's operations. They are learning how to cause maximum damage. Maintain presence. APTs work hard to avoid detection. They use legitimate administrative tools, encrypt their communications, and carefully limit their activities to avoid triggering security alerts. Now, complete mission. Finally, they execute their ultimate objective, exfiltration data, sabotaging systems, or establish long term access for future operations. Okay, let's move on to our modern attack timelines. Or okay, let me take a snip of this. Okay, let me show you how modern attacks unfold in real time, because understanding the timeline can help you detect and respond more effectively. The reconnaissance phase, right? In this phase, in the reconnaissance phase, can last days to months. Attackers are gathering open source intelligence from your website, social media, job posting, and public records. They are researching employees on LinkedIn and Facebook. They're scanning your network from the outside, identifying what services you are running. They are profiling employees to identify the best targets for social engineering. They are mapping your technology stack from job description and vendor relation. This phase shows you how serious modern attacks are. They are willing to spend months studying your organization before launching their first attack. This isn't random, it's strategic. Then, initial access typically happens in minutes, 2 hours, once they are ready to strike. Once they have all your information, they are ready to strike. They launch phishing campaigns using the intelligence they have gathered. They exploit public vulnerabilities in your web application or network services. They attempt credential stuffing attacks using breached passwords. They may compromise your supply chain or use physical access techniques. Once inside, the persistence and escalation phase takes hours to days. They install backdoors to maintain access. They escalate privileges using various techniques. They move laterally through your network, compromising additional systems. They disable security tools that might detect them. They create additional user accounts for persistent access. Right? This that is persistent and escalation hours to days. Then we have mission complete days to years. Mission complete, it can take days to years depending on their objective. They might exfiltrate data immediately and disappear. They might sabotage system for immediate impact. They might steal financial assets through fraudulent transactions, or they might establish long-term espionage capabilities and remain hidden for years. Right, the critical insight there here is that you have the best chance of stopping an attack during the initial phase. Once attackers establish persistent and escalate privileges, they become much harder to detect and remove. This timeline should inform your detection strategies. Monitor for reconnaissance activities, unusual scans, social engineering attempts, suspicious research of your organization. Implement strong controls at the initial access phases. This is your best checkpoint, and assume that if attackers get past initial access, they'll quickly establish persistence, so your detection capabilities need to be sophisticated and comprehensive. Now that you understand how attacks unfold, let's talk about how to detect them. So detection is where the rubber meets the road. All the security awareness training and technical controls in the world won't help you if you can't recognize when you are under attack. Let's start with network anomalies. Unusual traffic patterns might indicate data exfiltration or command or control communications. Unexpected connections, especially to foreign countries or known malicious IP addresses, are red flags. Large data transfers, particularly outside normal business hours, could indicate data theft. DNS queries to suspicious domains might indicate malware trying to communicate with attackers. And spike in failed authentication attempts often indicate password attacks or credential stuffing. Then system indicators are often the first sign that system's wrong. Slow system performance might indicate cryptocurrency mining malware or intensive malicious processes. Unexpected process activities, especially processes that shouldn't be running on or are running created outside normal provisioning processes, could indicate attack. Like let's suppose new user accounts, new user account, particularly those created outside normal provisioning processes, could indicate attackers establishing persistence. Modified file permission might indicate privilege escalation attempts, and disabled security tools are you know, uh, a clear sign that someone is trying to avoid detection. Then we have user behavior. User behavior analytics can catch attacks that bypass technical controls. Access at unusual hours might indicate compromised accounts. Users downloading large data sets outside their normal job functions could indicate data theft. Accessing unrelated systems or data that doesn't match their role suggests account compromise. Multiple failed logins followed by successful access might indicate password attack. And privileged account abuse, using administrative access for unauthorized purposes, often indicates insider threat. Now, what are some of the detection technologies we can avoid all these things and detect detection technologies? There is SIME tool. You can implement SIME tool, which is security information and event management. We have to or can implement EDR, UEBA, network monitoring, threat intelligence, and honeypots. These are some of the things which you can implement to avoid or to detect things. Then comprehensive defense strategy, preventive controls, detective controls. What are the preventive controls you have to take? The preventive controls, yes, we have talked about access controls, MFAs, put RBAC, least privilege, principle of least privilege. Secure your network by implementing firewalls, IPS, secure your endpoints, end devices by installing antiviruses, EDR, device controls. Train your employees in phishing emails, make them security aware. Patch management, patch the software or update your systems regularly. Whenever a new patch is released, then detective controls, monitor, like we talked about. How do you detect something? Using SIM, log analysis, anomaly detection, threat hunting, incident response, or there should be forensics, which you investigate and collect the evidence, and threat intelligence. All these things are, a curriculum or a subject in themselves. So, for as a cybersecurity beginner, I would want you to understand these terminologies. Don't go in depth right now. Once you understand all these things, when we go further, when you take up a new curriculum like SIME, like you want to you want to learn about Sentinel, Azure Sentinel, or you want to learn about Splunk, you'll want to learn about IBM QRadar. So there you will learn in depth about SIME tool, SOAR tool, what is it, and everything. Okay. Then we have incident response process. What is the process you follow to respond to an incident? Okay, the first step is preparation. Prepare yourself. Then identification. Detect what is the incident which has happened. Once the incident has happened, containment. Isolate your network, isolate your devices once it is affected, once you come to know it that this particular system is affected. The fourth step is, let me just bring this into Snap. Okay, you have a system. this system is affected, you are prepared and you identified that this system is affected, some virus is present in the system. What you do is immediately, let's suppose it is in a network, the system is in a network, immediately isolate this system from the network. Okay, then eradicate, remove the threat, then recover all the data, then again lesson learned, analyze, document things, then make the system join back the network. This is how your incident response should work. Industry specific threat landscape. Now what are the threats which would be with respect to industry specific? Healthcare, financial, critical infrastructures, then retail and e-commerce. Yes, there's a lab where you can work around all these things. I'll show you how you can work around and how you can understand with respect to different industry things. Okay, don't worry about this, there's a lab, I will be sharing you a link. Then emerging threats and future landscape. The emerging threats is all about AI powered nowadays. Deepfake technologies, AI generated phishing emails, automated vulnerability discovery. Everything is with respect to AI these days. And we have IoT and cloud threats. We have quantum computing impact, human centric attacks. See, as and when the technology increases, the attack increases. The new, you know, the new ways of attacking increases comes into picture. Then let's go to here. What are the key takeaways and next step we have to follow? Attackers exploit both technical and human vulnerabilities. Yes, humans are most vulnerable than the system. They can do social engineering and get all your information. Okay, these are some of the reminder points to remember, and these are some of the action items you should keep in mind. I'll quickly show you the lab. Okay, how it looks like and what how you can work around it. So this is the lab. Here there's a dummy scenario which is given. Imagine there's no such thing you have to go hack something and write down. Okay, think of whatever thing you have found. Let's suppose you have found SQL injection and it's critical severity. Write something about it, describe what it is, and click on generate bug report. Okay, once I fill something and click on generate report. Okay, and you click to see here, it gives you key pointers and report requirements, all those things. You can go through it, what exactly the lab is all about. And there's a scenario attack vector analysis, and you can see the risk level you can give. For example, what is this insider threat detection? How do you do a insider threat detection? Scenario is HR security analyst. You have, as a HR security analyst, you have noticed unusual behavior patterns from several employees. Analyze the risk factors and determine appropriate response. How do you analyze the risk factor is the question. Now, I could say significant behavior changes, working odd hours, right? That can be it. Or poor performance reviews or disciplinary actions, or recently divorced and he is in a financial stress. And then check all that applies, heavy, USB device usage or whatever it is, and check the risk level. Okay, the risk level is low. You can just go to some other thing and you can just check the risk level is more low here. Let me go to suspect. See, here it is 4, medium risk. So you can combine the combinations and try to check how to identify. Then when you come to attack methods, again you have some of the things to learn about. Let's suppose you got an email. What would be the email subjects? Give a phishing email subject. Go to GPT, create a phishing email, give the subject, give the sender information, and try urgency and everything, and try to analyze phishing attempt. Is this a phishing attempt? Try to analyze things. Then password, the network incident. Then you can come to defensive lab, and similarly you have scenarios and things like this. High, low, you can just give and try to check the scenario trainings. Then we have assessment here, which has a CIS, has a seesaw. What would be your assessment for this? And you can analyze, give some plans and all these things, and submit your final assessment in this lab. So this is all about your hacker types and attack methods. So security is not a product but a process. Stay vigilant, keep learning, and remember that today's best practice are tomorrow's minimum requirement. Thank you all. Hope you enjoyed.